Although I kind of skipped a month, but I'm not trying to do this per se monthly format, just whenever I feel like it. In that time, I've been to TFN Reading and NEC Toy Fair and picked up a few things here and there. So there'll be a bit of variety, and I'll probably go over some of them a bit quick because there's a few different ones to cover today. Before we get started on new purchases, this is just an update on the custom work I did on the Barbarian Grizzly one to cap up the year. I finished painting the paw, bat wing thing. I dyed it brown, painted the yellow parts on. The photos doesn't look like it's blended as well, but in hand it looks almost seamless, which is kind of interesting how the, it's a bit like Earthrise Sunstreaker, where if you took photos, the yellows look a bit more different, but in person it's a bit more blended. But either way, I'm really happy with how this turned out. It made a valuable figure missing a part feel just like the full figure, which is nice. Also, tail end of October, which I should have already covered in the October video, but I didn't. I went for these blind bag keychains where I got Swerve and Hot Rod. Hot Rod was the main one I was after. I've since given Swerve to my friend Joe, Crosshairs Productions, when we're at the TFN Minicon, which we'll get to in a second. I really like the toy aesthetic and how it carries over and just looks like a really unique, fun keychain, which has a lot of personality to it. And next we have Age of the Primes Micronus. Among my friends, not all of them are sold on the Age of the Primes 13 Primes. Meanwhile, others are really infused about them. I'm somewhere in the middle. I like a few of the designs, and I think this is one of the ones where it really carries over, does something unique, and even though it's based on Cyberverse or Rid 15, I can't remember which one, both series I'm not overly fond of, I don't really see that too much. I just see a really fun design here. I like how small the character transforms, turns into the little Minicon badge, and the little disc can doesn't power up the armor, but it goes inside of it as a sort of exosuit, which we saw in Transformers Prime of the exosuit there, Miko pilots. And then you can transform the armor into a bike for the little Micronus pilot. Obviously Micronus needed to be small, and if they're to sell him this size just on his own without the armor, people would feel ripped off. But you get a nice little play accessory that's optional. I found Micronus really fun. Some of these 13 Primes are great. Onyx is another really good one as well. And I'm interested to see what the final ones will be like. And now we're onto the TFNation Minicon Reading section. It was a nice, fun, relaxed day where I got to catch up with people I don't often see. Or in some cases I see often at these other conventions, but I just don't get time to talk to, and I felt like I got a proper chance to talk to a lot of people I know, and I didn't feel rushed around or anything. It was really nice. And I did actually buy some toys as the sort of theme of this video. I'll go over them, but because there's a few of them, not that I bought like an absolute handful, but I guess you couldn't fit all of it into hands too, unless you got really big hands. Either way, I'm gonna kind of go through the things I bought a bit quickly, not to say that I don't appreciate each and every one of the ones I picked up. I guess I don't really want to do a top 10 this year because I don't really like favouring things over others. I want to enjoy anything I purchase, and I think everything deserves its moments to shine, and scaling everything in sort of hierarchical order, I think it takes some of the enjoyment away from the hobby, so I'm actually just not going to do that and just do these videos instead to just highlight the things I generally enjoy in the collecting space. Anyway, let's get on to the actual purchases. So as soon as I started buying, I went straight to Toy-Fu as per usual, and I found a Takara Beast Wars Metalled Rampage, or Protoform X. I've always liked this toy, never actually owned one myself, always known people that have, but I really like the Takara deco, the X on the back of the crab, the clear red in the robot mode, really nice, just missing the cannon. I'll find a Kenan one fairly cheap, so really nice first purchase. Also at the Toy-Fu table, I found a Wild King Hydrophant to keep up the trend of buying Wild King toys a lot this year. Again, pretty much the same mold, slightly retooled, but I like the little elephant with the blaster tusks, really fun. I also bought the Beast Wars 2 Mantis, known as Manterra in the Western release. The clear lilac parts have been replaced with a more darker blue for the Takara one, which I really like on this version. He's also a Maximal instead of a Predacon, and also just an overall really fun toy. There is also the ever popular Injector, which used to warm the shelves of the 90s, which is a Beast Wars mold I'd never experienced, and it was missing the blaster that forms part of the back of the Beast mode, so I've still not fully experienced it, sadly. It's more fun than I thought it would be, but it's also, I can see the complaints. So initially I thought I was done collecting Transformers Animated. I had all the figures I wanted from that, but then I saw this Mech Ideas Bluster, which is the animated version of Huffer, based on Mario's design. I guess this is maybe like Wario if it's in yellow, but it's just Huffer really. And because of the rarity and the affordability of the price of this, I just thought this is a nice way to round out the animated shelf. And the tank that Huffer is standing on is Beast Wars 2nd Gigatron, which is basically just G2 Megatron, but I just bought it so I could customize it into G1 colored Megatron at a later date. You might see some assorted plushies in this haul. This is a brand called Reese, which was at it was either the Blokees stand or the Transformers shop stand. Pretty sure it was Blokees, but they were really nice at that store, and they had these were really cheap, and so we just got a few blind bags here and there. Ended up with a lot of Starscreams and Megatrons, but they also were happy to trade with the display ones. And I met someone at the bar, and she said she was going to use them as Christmas decorations, which was a great idea, and I used it myself. So nice little Christmas tree ornaments, or whatever else you use keychains for. And over at the PrimeTime Toys stall, they showed me these clear cassettes from Doctor Wu. Didn't realize they were clear plastic at first, but whenever I was told they were clear plastic, that's when I decided to go for these. And these are Slugfest and Overkill. And Overkill is probably the best cassette design, or molding, engineering as you will, design I've ever seen in a cassette transformer. The way it transforms, and even like how the tail kind of splits apart and merges. If you want a good Overkill toy, definitely get the Doctor Wu one. As mentioned before, Joe Crosshairs Productions was at the convention as well. He bought the latest Blokees Defender Wave. He didn't care for the clear plastic Optimus, but I really like my clear plastic, as you might have seen from some of the other purchases from here. And he just gifted me the Optimus Prime, which is just a really nice toy, and really nice of him as well, so thank you, Joe. Another Blokees purchase was the vehicle Scamper. I didn't really want the full wave, but I saw Toy Fu had these sort of individual ones, of probably ones people didn't want. I only really was interested in Scamper out a lot of them, especially to go with the Generations Metroplex, and these are a lot better than I thought they would be. They've actually got a lot of die cast. Windscreen can open up and you can put a Diaclone pilot in. And I'm just grouping these because I got them at the same time as part of a deal from Leicester Vintage. Henkei, Silverbolt, and Botcon Elita. Botcon Elita was missing the missile pod weapon thing. As you can see in the picture, I replaced it with the Cyberverse RC gun. And I got the Minerva version of this mold a while back, and I really enjoyed this boat mold that I kind of wanted other colors of it. And Henkei Silverbolt, Silverbolt was my first ever Transformer, the G1 version. I got rid of my Universe Silverbolt ages ago, but the Henkei one, the bright white, the very much cartoon colors, I really liked that. And Universe Silverbolt is generally a really fun toy. Doesn't combine or anything, but it just really is a good Silverbolt design. I also picked up Transart Black Arachnia, the Transmetal 2 one. I was always a really big fan of the introduction of the Maximal Black Arachnia in Season 3 of Beast Wars. It's one of the highlights of that season. It was the character arc going full circle, had an amazing guitar riff during our introduction, but the original toy I didn't really like that much. I've had it before, looks pretty ugly, it's just a bit of a mess, it's a bit oversized. This one, it's tall because it's masterpiece scale and everything, but it captures the design a lot better. The transformation is obviously very parts formery, but I just really like how we've got an actual Transmetal 2 Black Arachnia toy that doesn't look terrible anymore. A minor gripe is the lack of posability of the hands. The wrist doesn't swivel or anything like that, and the chest plate is magnetic and comes off quite easily. I just really like this design having an actual good representation finally. And finally, for a special mention, I did just research this now. It was Blokees, not Battersea Power Station. It was the Blokees stand. They had the Battersea Power Station Advent Calendar, which is the confusion. But in that calendar, you get 24 Defender Blokees and a metal coin, which is a nice Advent calendar. It's got really good artwork, and it's got the Battersea Power Station Titan Transformer on it as well. But they had the Defenders that you get in an Advent calendar on display around it, and in that mix, they had the Rodimus Prime and a Rumble. And towards the end of the convention, I just asked them, are you likely to sell these separately? If so, how much? And they just said, just take them for free, which I wasn't expecting that at all, and that was insanely nice of them. So I want to say a special thank you to Blokees for giving me 2 Blokees, just out of the goodness of their heart, and it really was just such a nice gesture that it really elevated the convention atmosphere for me massively. So thank you again, Blokees. And these were my purchases from TFN Reading. Hope you guys liked them. There's still more to come because it's been an eventful last 2 months. And before I start talking about other toys, as per usual of these videos, let's look at the community spotlight at what other people have to say for this one.
Hey guys, Larry here, and I got a fun question for you. Have you ever bought your Holy Grail Transformer from Facebook Marketplace? Oh, you have? Well, me too, but this thing's way cooler than anything you've ever bought. For years and years and years, I've wanted this guy, but it's always been behind an expensive BotCon exclusive set. But one day, my luck turned for the better, and some random guy decided he wanted to sell just this figure, and by George, I bought it. This is Animated Motor Master. He's just so great. I've always wanted this guy forever, especially since I found out that his voice is based on Macho Man Randy Savage. And look, let me be frank with you. I've had this figure before with Optimus Prime. There's a legacy version of this figure with way better articulation. But come on. You can't deny how awesome and cool this looks. The transformation elements are so fun. The accessories, although a little bit weird, they have always had a great charm on me, especially that humongous axe. Like, it's just crazy. Is this my favorite figure that I bought all year? No, not really. But it is in the top 3. I'm just so happy that this thing that I've been searching for forever is finally home with me. Nobody else can have it.
Yeah, so one of the more notable purchases I made in 2025 that I think really stuck with me was probably Transformers Age of the Primes Prima, one of the original 13 Primes. And a franchise that really likes to stick with the same characters and designs each year, it was really refreshing to see a character that, while is extremely important to, I think, Transformers lore in general, and has been increasingly more and more prevalent to Transformers media, they haven't gotten a single figure yet. And obviously this can be said about all the 13 Primes. And I know there was that Power the Primes line that hinted at the 13 Primes a few years ago, but they still never really got their own figures until now. And it's been really cool to see these figures come to life. And I do really think that each one has been a banger in their own right. And I think Primer was a really great place to start. And it's really cool to have such an important character finally have a physical figure. Especially someone like me who prefers the more spiritual and mystical side of the Transformers origins with like the 13 Primes and Primus versus the more mechanical and factory built origins from like the G1 era. But Hasbro has done such a great job these past few years, I think since Siege really, of making sure all the figures they release in the Generations line really fits aesthetically, and whether it's the comic book design, Armada design, Cybertron design, G1 design, they all really do kind of share a core aesthetic and can fit on the shelf together. And they did a really good job of making sure the Primes are prime examples of that, no pun intended. Overall, I think Age of the Primes has probably been my personal favorite Transformers line in quite a few years. I think that it just took everything that was really great about Legacy and just dialed it up to 11. You know, we're still getting great G1 designs, great Armada designs, Cybertron designs. Now we're getting some great combiners. And on top of that, we're getting, again, really awesome 13 Prime figures. And I think Primer is a great example of that. He's a solid design, a solid figure, good articulation. He looks great on a shelf. He poses really nice. And, you know, he just really looks cool. And yeah, so I just really wanted to highlight what I think is a really solid figure of 2025.
So today I want to talk about Age of the Primes Cybertron Sideways. This thing is freaking fantastic. Now, long story short, I grew up on the island of Oahu, and in the early 2000s, the Transformers stock at places like Walmart or Toys R Us, or even later on when Target rolled around, was not great. So you really had to rely on a place called Toys and Joys, rest in peace, doesn't exist anymore, for good imports, especially Takara Transformers. Always thought that this Sideways was one of the best designs to come out of Cybertron, which is a lot to say because the Cybertron TV show had absolute banger after banger in terms of character design. But this thing is next level. It has all the articulation that you would expect from a modern figure, but stays really faithful to the on-screen design of the original Sideways. And I'm not one to double dip on figures. I really try to be super selective about what my collection holds. This might be one that ends up breaking that rule because I would happily own a second copy of this figure in its white Galaxy Force colors. Just call it Noise Maze, and I'm happy to have 2 of them. I really think that this is a figure that if it's not in your collection currently, it should be one that's on your must-get list. For like 4 days after I bought it, I just kept picking it up and posing it. He's so cool, highly articulated, fantastic, and I honestly don't miss the little splashes of green that are in the on-screen colors. Age of the Prime Cybertron Sideways. Go buy it. It's really cool.
Hello everybody, it's Ralph, also known as ralphhotwheels, and I'm presenting my pick, which is Mastermind Creations Commodus, aka Turmoil from the IDW comics. Now this figure's story is really funny. I paid over $318 only for this expensive and rare figure to arrive broken. Now, to say I was disappointed and displeased is a massive understatement. And putting aside personal issues of going to emergency surgery around the same time, I am very thankful to Fiero Locks aka Edgar for fixing this guy up for me. What would have been a major disappointment in my collection has completely turned 180 to massive enjoyment. From the banger robot mode to that killer metal slug-esque tank mode. To say I am grateful to finally obtain this long-awaited grail.
I mentioned previously about going to NEC Toy Fair, and when I was there I stumbled across a Dino Tyranno from Dinozaurs sealed in box, which is a figure I've been looking for the last 30 years. But you might be asking, who is Dino Tyranno?
Dino Tyranno! Power of the Ancients! Silver Sword! Dino Knight ready! Let's do
Dinozaurs was a series that came out in the year 2000, which was the Western release of a Japanese series called Dino Zone. I used to watch the cartoon growing up. I had a couple of the figures. I had Dino Stego and I think a Junker of another one, but I could never really find these too often, or whenever I found them, there was something I wanted slightly more at the time, so I always ended up skipping on some of them. But Dino Tyranno was the leader of the Dino Knights in the series, leader of the good guys, and he was always a character I always wanted to own the toy of, but I could never really find one. I think I've seen one once before, but it's in a very mangled, Junker-like condition. This was brand new, sealed in box. Absolutely pristine. Even the chrome is unfazed. Like, sometimes chrome deteriorates even in packaging, but in this case it's just an absolutely mint out of the box figure, and that makes the enjoyment of this so much greater. And I'm really happy with how this turns out. I'm not normally a fan of chrome, but the chrome on this is exceptionally nice to look at, especially in the right lighting. So another NEC Toy Fair find was the G2 Flame Feather, one of the Firecons. You know, you pull them back, sparks come out. The flint on this one is pretty much gone. You can get like a slight little flicker. I just really wanted a good conditioned one to display next to my G2 Sparkstalker, which was the first ever Decepticon toy I got. And funny enough, the flint on that one still works to this day. And I think this is ultimately what got me started into really enjoying clear plastic as a feature on figures. The two of them together also just complement each other so nicely and work as such a good pair to display on a clear plastic shelf. And another NEC Toy Fair find was G2 GoBot Mirage. When you hear G2 Mirage these days, you think of the watermelon colours, the unreleased one, but this is the actual official one that they released in a very, not your typical Mirage deco. It's a bit edgier, but I like these sort of designs where it's mostly black, silver, and then it's got hints of colour. I think sometimes that works effectively well. And similar to Sparkstalker, I picked up a lot of the G2 GoBots as some of my earliest Transformers, so I'm getting closer to completing the whole set of them now. I do really like this sort of style of Transformer. The Spy Changer G2 GoBot mold is such a good entry point, but also just really captures what a Transformer should be. And that were the highlights of the NEC Toy Fair. Moving on to the other figures again now. A nice little gift from Joe, also known as Valk, were these Audley Transformer figures of RC and Cliffjumper. I think the hot rod behind them is also Audley, or it's YOLO part. Either way, they work together really nicely and make a nice little trio. They're very different to Blokees. They're nice little articulated toys that are unique in their own way, and thanks again, Joe, for these. I also ended up getting the Age of the Primes Skybite, which is a really good toy. A lot of people have sung praises as it being one of the best Voyager toys of the year. However, the next few things I'm going to go over I think are slightly better. Not to say this isn't good, but I think the Shark mode is very expressive unlike the previous releases. There's a lot you can do with moving it around, posing it, and I wasn't overly fond with the shoulders in robot mode. This is a really great modern interpretation of Skybite. I think part of me just thinks they could have done slightly better, and some people might think that's ridiculous because it's a really good toy, but I think there's just still room for a better Skybite out there. And this is one of the figures I thought was slightly better than Skybite, which is the Sonic Crossover 2-pack of Wingtail and Blue Booster. Before I took photos, I already customized my Wingtail into Transformers Universe Topspin, which may eventually show up in a video, possibly. I feel like the representation of these as Sonic crossovers is kind of the looser part of the praise. I think the bit I'm really praising is just how fun the transformations are, and just what the transformations do in terms of size scaling. Like with Sonic, the car mode is so much smaller than the robot mode, which I always find that one of the more impressive parts of transformation, if they can like change a lot of the color palette, or if they can really change the size between modes. In terms of posability, these are fairly limited, but I think with a lot of the modern toys being overly posable, I don't mind that. I prefer a more fun transformation and overall figure. Wingtail he's very kibble heavy, but the transformation into the biplane mode and the biplane itself is just really fun, really well put together, and I think these two are just very solid figures that I think are worth experiencing, even if you're not a Sonic fan. I mean, I'd say you only experience them if you're not a Sonic fan, if you plan to customize them. But that said, I'd actually say Wingtail is actually a really tricky one to customize because all the red plastic, all the friction, it's not an easy one to customize. However, I had a lot of fun with both of these. I'm not sure everyone else will, but these are figures I generally really enjoyed experiencing. And now onto the penultimate figure, which is a 2-pack, and probably the biggest surprise of the year in terms of I wasn't expecting them to be as good as they were, but this Hearts of Steel Bumblebee and Megatron 2-pack really surprised me, especially the Bumblebee. I thought the Megatron was definitely going to be great. The heavy metal, rock and roll, spikes and everything, and then you get the cannon mode. That Megatron is just such a good design. It just suffers from the size scale, really. If they could upscale that, it would be an absolute perfect Megatron, and I can see absolutely everyone clamoring to get the set. That said, he is still really good as a deluxe. He's a tall deluxe. And as for Bumblebee, it's like what I said of the Sonic crossover. Whenever a Transformer can really shrink in size when they transform, that's quite impressive in terms of engineering. And Bumblebee is a fairly small deluxe, but then he gets even smaller for the tiny train mode. And when you hold the tiny train in hand, see it next to other deluxe figures, it's got a really nice charm to it. It's just really well detailed, really well painted. And this is one of my favorite Bumblebee toys in years. Anyone who's thinking about just getting the third-party Hearts of Steel Bumblebee, just skip that, go for the Hasbro one. It's far better, it's official, and you're not gonna regret getting this thing. And now, the final purchase of 2025, which funnily enough arrived on New Year's Eve, which is the anime colors Missing Link, Cliff Jumper, and Bumblebee. I don't really collect G1 so much. I've got a few of the ones I grew up with when I was younger, but if I'm buying Generation 1 toys, I'd prefer them to be in the cartoon accurate color scheme. So they're slightly different from the original release and feel a bit more cartoon accurate, I suppose, or have some sort of fun style to them. I'm very particular and a bit weird with my G1 toy preferences, but this checks all the boxes. It's very much reminiscent of the original toys, but Missing Link as well, so you got the added posability. I've already experienced the Cliff Jumper previously, which is why I pre-ordered these right away, because, again, like I said, it's Missing Link, which is another checkbox, Cartoon Deco, another checkbox. They're not really doing that line anymore, the retro movie reissue color scheme ones. The ones where we got Pink Hot Rod, basically. It's a shame that's ending, but then I feel like Missing Link is starting to pick up the slack of where that left off, hopefully. I really do like how the guns store on the feet for storage in vehicle mode, which I didn't discover initially when I first got the Cliff Jumper. It took me a while to kind of catch on to this, and that's what I really do like about Missing Link, and it's got this sort of G1 toy feel, but you can still learn new things about it. The car modes are very much identical to the original release, not much different there. It's all in the transformation and robot mode, but just what you'd expect really out of these. They both look really nice. I'm really happy with both of these, and they make a really nice final purchase of the year for me. And that is it for this video and 2025. Thanks for watching, and hopefully catch you in the next one.